Evaluator. Art was giving his number one speech, the Icebreaker. The purpose of an icebreaker is to literally break the ice, to introduce a relatively new member to the club, to overcome any nervousness that might be there, and for the speech to have a clear organization. And Art, you met all of those criteria most well. In fact, I get the feeling that you've spoken in front of an audience before. So because of that, I normally only give one suggestion to an icebreaker, but this time, because you're a more experienced speaker, I'm going to make a few more. But let me first talk about the strong points that you already have. The three things that struck me the most were your confidence, your presence at the lectern in terms of commanding the stage, and your voice that I thought was particularly effective in drawing us in to what you were saying, to use it as a form of communication device through modulation, and by the fact that it was already very firm, strong, has a good volume, but not an overbearing one. And that's a very delicate thing, because there are people with strong voices who tend to kind of overwhelm you a little bit. And there are some people who have very high voices, and so those we want to bring up. Your voice is perfect. The organization of your speech was in 3 points. You had 3 points. You told us at one point what they were, then you told us, and then you recapped and said what you told us. So that's the classic 3-part organization. I was particularly struck, too, by how you were vulnerable at the very beginning, talking about your childhood. That's something which is very challenging to do. It's challenging enough to get in front of people, maybe people you don't know quite so well. It's doubly challenging to be that vulnerable. And the topic of integrating fear is something that I'm quite interested in. Those of you who heard my speech at the contest hopefully can see a connection to that. It was a very informative talk. You told us a lot about what fear is about, and from the neuroscience of it to how it affects us. Which gets me to some of my suggestions. Telling us what the 3 points were came relatively late in the speech. I think it would have been a little more effective for an informative speech like that to tell it a little bit more up front. And more to the point, as an icebreaker, as informative as the speech was, I wanted to hear more about your fears, because hearing, and I know that this might have been a little difficult in an icebreaker, but I wanted to get to know you a little bit better. So it would have been, I think, something you could have talked a little bit about how you overcome fears or what you did. You know, maybe not kind of go into the depth psychology of it all necessarily, but as an officer, as a pilot, I'm afraid of flying, let alone actually flying the darn thing. So that I would have liked to have seen that, and I would like to see that in future speeches. And you're already an outstanding speaker. You have a lot of skills, and I thank you and look forward to hearing more. Madam General Evaluator.